Yo, what is up YouTube? James Baek here, and in this video I'm going to be going over the history of Tornogre, my personal history with this team in VGC 2019. So if you don't know, I've used this team for all of VGC 2019 throughout all the 3 series that we've had for the year. I've used it in Sun Series, Moon Series, and Ultra Series, and have gotten some really good results with the team throughout all the series. And I'm going to be sharing each result, each team version of this team, change it a little bit here and there between each event, and showcasing the journey that I've gone through with this team. It has been a pleasure to use this team, and I am looking forward to telling you all about it. So if you don't know what I've accomplished with this team, in the Sun Series I was able to get second at the Latin America International Championship, as well as first at the Roanoke Regional Championship. In Moon Series, I was able to get 6th place at the Oceania International Championship and 10th place at the Toronto Regional Championship, or Brampton if you want to say Brampton. It was Brampton, but yeah. And also in Ultra Series, I was able to accomplish a 12th place at the North America International Championship and a 3rd place at the 2019 Pokemon World Championship. This team was really fun to use. I really enjoyed using this team. These 6 Pokemon mean so much to me. And let's get started with the analysis of the Sun Series events that I have gone through. Would you believe me if I said I actually didn't like Tornogre when it first came out? Yeah, crazy, but actually I didn't like Tornogre when it first came out. So the history with this team and how I first began using it was at a local event, a mid-season showdown. I was passed a team by my friend Joey, shout out to Joey, but he ended up giving me a version of his team. It had Clefairy over Moongus, but it was the same 6 basically, with a Scarf Kyogre, which was the standard at the time. And I tried it out, and I went 2-3, which was the only time I think I went negative at an event in 2019. So yeah, I wasn't really a huge fan of how it played. I didn't know how it played either. It seemed really complicated at the time, and yeah, I just wasn't a really big fan of it. So I ended up not using the team for a while, but then I ended up seeing this team accomplish so much. Matteo won a regional in Europe with this team, but with Serena, and Riley ended up winning a regional championship here in North America with a Kartana instead of the Serena. But it also had Bulky Berry Kyogre over the standard Scarf variant. And this team ended up still doing really well. It kept winning events. So I was very surprised that this team was doing so well. So 1 month before the Latin America International Championship, I decided to try out this team. Not because I wanted to use it, but actually because I wanted to understand how this team worked. And I wanted to understand how to beat it. So in order to understand how to beat a team, you need to understand how a team works in order to beat it. So I ended up picking up a team thanks to Riley. He ended up posting a paste of his team on Twitter for everyone to see, which was great because I was able to get access to the team. And I ended up making some changes here and there for how I want to make the team play to my play style. And then I ended up liking the team. I was experimenting around with other teams as well, but this team I ended up liking a lot more and more as I learned more about this team, more about how to position this team to victory. So I ended up bringing this to the Latin America International Championship and the Roanoke Regional Championship. And yeah, here is that version of the team. So we'll start off with Xerneas. Xerneas was pretty standard with Power Herb, Fairy Aura for its ability with Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Geomancy, and Protect. I used the same spread throughout both events. It was 220 HP, 4 defense, 28 special attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed with a timid nature. And the reason I decided to go with a bulky Xerneas is because of the fact that I ended up liking bulky Xerneas a lot, because of the fact that Xerneas with a Geomancy boost already does so much damage with Moonblast and Dazzling Gleam that really you're not missing too many KOs, or many 2-hit KOs are still going to be 2-hit KOs regardless, and you're not really going to be picking up any specific 1-hit KOs that are really different from what no special attack would do anyway. So I ended up just running a bulky Xerneas set, and I felt like this bulky Xerneas was great. I ended up running no special attack for a while, but I ended up changing it because I wanted a little bit of special attack because it was starting to miss a little bit of damage. but I want to figure out a good benchmark. The benchmark I decided to hit was just always Oko a 4 HP Yveltal with Moonblast, which I felt was a pretty nice benchmark at the time. So I ended up investing that 28 in special attack and then putting the rest into HP. So the Xerneas was meant to, speed tie with opposing Xerneas if it came down to that situation, outspeed the slower Xerneases, as well as the fact it can outspeed Lunala and get a Geomancy off before it gets hit by like a Moongeist Beam. And it had a good roll to live Solgaleo Sunsteel Strike with the bulk. So the Xerneas ended up putting a lot of work. It was able to survive a lot of attacks. It was able to live something like a Scarf Water Spout from Kyogre before it gets a Geomancy, and then it can Geomancy afterward and get a lot of damage off. This bulky Xerneas ended up putting a ton of work for me in both the events. The Kyogre, I ended up changing the Kyogre and using a different set compared to the standard Tornogre teams and the popular Tornogre teams that were running around. I ended up giving my Kyogre a Mystic Water with Drizzle as ability, Water Spout, Thunder, Scald, Protect. At Latin America, I ran 4 HP, 4 defense, 156 special attack, 92 special defense, and 252 speed, while at the Roanoke Regional Championship, I ended up changing the spread to 2 HP, 4 defense, 252 special attack, 20 special defense, and 228 speed with a timid nature. This Kyogre that I used, the Modest Kyogre, was just meant to outspeed Smeargle, live timid +2 Moonblast from Xerneas, which was really nice. And yeah, it was a very solid spread. I ended up using Mystic Water, which was the big factor between a 50% berry like Riley's and the Choice Scarf variant that was really common otherwise. I ended up liking Mystic Water's damage output because of the fact that I like Protect. I like having Protect. I think Scarf Kyogre limited the amount of plays I could make with this, and as well as the positioning that I could do with this team. So I felt like Mystic Water fit because of the fact that it ended up changing so many calcs. There are players who invest to live Water Spout from Kyogre, as well as maybe some double-O's from like Xerneas. But the fact is that Mystic Water completely changes those calcs and obliterates those calcs actually. With its added output with the Rain Boost and the Water Spout, it is doing a ton of damage. That it ended up doing more damage than opponents expected, which threw them off guard. And the fact that Mystic Water boosted Scald could always KO a especially defensive Incineroar, because if you don't run a Mystic Water, it's a roll, I believe. But the fact is, Scald being able to KO a bulky Incineroar all the time was nice, since I didn't have to rely on the roll and I could always get that knockout. And Mystic Water just put in so much work at the events. It was able to do so much damage and is definitely, I think, the key star, like the key item of this team. The Mystic Water put in so much work. Like, I can't even begin to explain how many knockouts I was able to get, how much damage I was able to spread. And yeah, I think Mystic Water was the best item on Kyogre for the Sun series at least. But at Latin America, I ended up using the Modest spread, but at Roanoke I ended up trying out the Timid spread just to see how much I would really miss the damage and maybe the extra speed was worth it. It really wasn't. I felt like the Modest spread was better. Like, the only thing that ended up changing was like I was able to outspeed a Modest Xerneas before I could Geomancy right away, which actually did come to play at Roanoke when I replayed Ashton at Roanoke Regionals in the final round of Swiss. But otherwise, it really wasn't that worth it in my opinion. I missed a little bit of extra bulk, as well as the fact that I also might have missed a few KOs potentially because I was running Timid. But otherwise, I think Mystic Water Kyogre was a beautiful Pokemon. Next, we have Tornadus, and my Tornadus, I ended up, again, changing it from the original team. I ended up running a Mental Herb on the Tornadus with Prankster's ability, Hurricane, Tailwind, Taunt, and Protect. The spread at ran at Latin America was 44 HP, 20 defense, 188 special attack, 4 special defense, and max speed, while at the Roanoke Regional Championship I ended up changing the item and the EV spread to just a simple Focus Sash with 4 HP, 252 special attack, and 252 speed, both with Timid natures. The reason I decided to run Mental Herb on Tornadus was because, again, the item was subjective, but the fact is I wasn't really activating that Focus Sash. It really wasn't coming into play that much during my practice game, so I ended up changing it. And I was having trouble with the mirror just because of the fact that some players would just go for the taunt speed tie into Tornadus turn 1, and if they got it, they ended up winning the game. So it ended up just really annoying me. So I ended up going to Mental Herb just to counter that in case I did play a mirror match with the Tornogre mirror, which it did come into play. I did end up beating the 2 Tornogres I did play at the Latin America International Championship, and Mental Herb actually did come in pretty handy during those games. Otherwise, the EV spread was pretty simple. I wanted a lot of special attack. You have to run max speed in order to have a speed advantage. You want to be able to outspeed Cortana, for instance, as well as the fact is you want to at least have a chance to speed tie other Tornazes. If that's the case, you also outspeed base 110, such as Gengar, for instance. And the little bit of bulk is just to take a Psyshock better, like it's a better roll in your favor to take a Psyshock, which I felt was definitely worth it since I didn't need all the special attack at the time. But at the Roanoke Regional Championship, I ended up changing the Focus Sash just because I felt like I was a bit more confident in playing the mirror than I was at Latin America. So yeah, that is the Tornadus. Next we have the Amoonguss, and at Latin America I ran a surprise item. We have the red card as its held item with Regenerator as its ability, Grass Knot, Clear Smog, Spore, Rage Powder with 236 HP, 76 defense, and 196 special defense with a Sassy Nature and 2 Speed IVs. So the 2 Speed IVs was just to speed creep other Amoonguss just in case of a mirror match between Amoonguss and Amoonguss. If I had to, like, maybe I could win it while still taking as little damage from Gyro Ball from Sakataka as possible. The spread lives a Flare Blitz naturally from a Incineroar that has no attack investment, which was really handy, and then the rest in special defense just to take on Kyogre and Xerneas a lot better. I ran red card as its held item. The reason I decided to go with the red card was because of the fact that Payapa I wasn't really using because I wasn't really facing any Tapu Lele or Lunala at the practice matches that I was doing. So I ended up changing an item to where it could maybe win me a game if it comes down to that situation. And I felt like there were some things that I was really still annoyed with the team. There was Smeargle and Xerneas, which I was really scared about facing at the Latin America International Championships. So I ended up going red card because like that could end up being a huge factor if they try to set up with like Smeargle, Fake Out, or Follow Me and Geomancy. I could switch in Amoonguss potentially and get a red card out that Xerneas, which could screw up their entire game plan. So that's the reason why I decided to go red card. It didn't come too handy at the Latin America International Championship. There might have been like 1 or 2 cases where it might have actually came in handy, but otherwise it wasn't really like a necessary item, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like the worst item that I could have had, and it could have potentially made a play in finals if I ended up playing well with the Amoonguss, which I didn't. So yeah. And at the Roanoke Regional Championship, I just switched the item around to Payapa Berry just because Payapa Berry would have probably came in handy against the Lunalas that I was facing at the Latin America International Championship, especially since it won and Roanoke was the week after Latin America. I was not going to be surprised to face a couple of Lunala because it just won the big event. So I ended up changing to Payapa Berry, and it ended up putting in a ton of work. I faced a lot of Lunala in Swiss and Top Cut. So Payapa Berry was really handy for that event. The Incineroar was pretty much just a standard Incineroar you would see in VGC 2019 Sun Series. There wasn't really anything super special about this Incineroar. It was a Figgy Berry with Intimidate. It had Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Roar, and U-Turn. 236 HP, 4 attack, 4 physical defense, 236 special defense, and 28 speed. The Roar was just so I can handle the opposing Xerneas better, as well as Trick Room in some situations, which I felt like was really handy in general because I liked Roar quite a lot on the Incineroar. I didn't felt like I needed a Dark type move. Knockoff wasn't really, like I wasn't clicking Knockoff much at all when I had Knockoff, and Throat Chop wasn't like too handy at the time, and Darkest Lariat or Crunch wasn't going to be too helpful, and I don't really like Snarl on this team since it doesn't really help me in my opinion. I want to click Snarl much anyway, so I wanted a move that I could click more, and Roar was definitely a move I clicked quite a bit at both events. I'm really happy with this Incineroar as it's standard, but it just does the job. It gets the job done. So very standard. The EV spread just allows it to live Timid, max special attack, Xerneas' Moonblast for after Geomancy boost, and is able to underspeed Primal so it can get a slow U-turn off or a fast U-turn in Trick Room. So yeah, that is the Incineroar. And the final member going to be the Kartana with the Assault Vest item with Beast Boost as its ability, Leaf Blade, Smart Strike, Knockoff, and Sacred Sword with 4 HP, 52 attack for physical defense, 236 special defense, and 212 speed with a jolly nature. Now the reason I decided to run this Kartana and the amount of speed I did was because I want to speed creep other Kartanas, but I wanted a reason to speed creep those Kartanas. Like I needed a genuine reason to run all the speed, because I could be running that speed attack, which means I could be getting a little bit more damage. So I want to know, what did I really want to outspeed. I decided to go Nihilego because in a few friendly sets that I had with some practice partners, I ended up finding out Nihilego was actually really annoying if they outspeed the Kartana, because Nihilego is actually a pretty big threat to the rest of the members because it hits most of the members pretty effectively and you can't really damage it outside the Kyogre. So I decided just to outspeed Nihilego, even though it wasn't that common in the format. Like it was rarely used, or it wasn't even really used at all. But since it was definitely a possibility and it gave me a good reason to, since the team was kind of weak to Nihilego, especially if they had a Groudon, I thought that having a way to outspeed it and knock it out effectively was a good call. So I ended up going with 212 speed. The special defense as well as the HP allowed it to live a feint from max attack Serena into a timid Geomancy boosted Xerneas Moonblast 100% of the time in case there was a double up of that situation, and then the rest left over an attack just so I can do as much damage as possible. Pretty standard moveset. Knockoff was very handy at the event, and because it was able to knock off power herbs or do a lot of damage to Lunala, as well as getting rid of whatever item that the Lunala could carry, because this Kartana could live a Moongeist beam that isn't boosted by like Spooky Plate or Choice Specs, which were common items at the time. So having knockoff is pretty handy. I thought about Psycho Cut at one point just so I could handle the Toxicroaks, but knockoff I think was the smarter call, and I was definitely clicking it more with Kartana than I was Incineroar. So yeah, that is the 6 that I use from Sun Series, and we're going to be moving on to the Moon Series version of this team. Okay, time for Moon Series. So in Moon Series, I don't like Moon Series, I can tell you that much, but I ended up using the team to get 6th place at the Oceania International Championship, as well as 10th place at the Brampton Regional Championship. And in the beginning, I didn't believe in Tornogre. The reason is I thought people would be counter teaming it more, and I felt like it wouldn't be as strong with the Z moves coming out, especially Lunala getting a Z move, which is pretty big, especially in the matchup against Lunala, because knockoff is doing less damage with Kartana, which was a pretty big deal in the fact you can knock out Kartana with that Z move. So I didn't really believe in the team. I ended up experimenting around, but toward the beginning of the Oceania International Championship, about a week before, I ended up trying to experiment around with the team once again, because I wasn't really liking a lot of the things that I was using and testing at the time. So I ended up just going with a different version of the team, going based on theory, but yeah, it ended up working. Let's get down and analyze this team. So we have Xerneas up front with the Power Herb. Once again, the only item we run on Xerneas, Fairy Aura for its ability. This time running Moonblast, Psyshock, Geomancy, and Protect with 188 HP, 12 physical defense, 52 special attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed. Timid nature, that's what I decided to run at the Oceania International Championship. At Brampton, I ran a bit of a different spread that involved 92 HP, 12 defense, 148 special attack, 4 special defense, 252 speed, again with a timid nature. Now, the interesting thing about this Xerneas is Psyshock, and I'm going to explain Psyshock because it was actually a really good move. Like Dazzling Gleam, I thought I'd miss it, but I didn't really miss Dazzling Gleam too much, because I felt like I could always play around not having Dazzling Gleam, while Psyshock was able to cover some new weaknesses that the team developed. With the Kyogre I was running that doesn't have Thunder anymore, I had no way to really double up a Toxicroak with like +2 Moonblast and a Thunder into the Toxicroak, which would be able to guarantee a knockout. So with that option in mind, Toxicroak ended up getting a lot harder, and I couldn't reliably knock out Toxicroak all the time, because some Toxicroaks were changing to have Cross Chop or Low Sweep into Kartana. So Kartana couldn't exactly 1v1 a Toxicroak reliably as it did in Sun Series because of that change. So I ended up needing something else to handle Toxicroak more effectively, as well as a Moongus with the rise of the Volcarona Zerndon team that ended up increasing popularity. So I thought Psyshock would be pretty good because they would be able to one-shot a Toxicroak even without the Geomancy boost. Overall, both Xerneas were solid, and Xerneas was able to get the job done. It was able to knock out a Toxicroak. It was able to do a lot of damage to opposing Moongus that I ended up encountering in the tournament. So Psyshock was actually pretty successful for me. So the Kyogre is the big change of this team. I ended up going with the Normalium Z Crystal with Drizzle as ability, Water Spout, Scald, Psych Up, and Protect. The Kyogre spread I ran at Oceania was 156 HP for defense, 156 special attack, 12 special defense, and 180 speed with a modest nature. At Brampton, I ended up slightly adjusting the spread to have 100 HP, 4 defense, 140 special attack, 28 special defense, and 236 speed, again with a modest nature. So I think the big change is the Psych Up with Normalium Z. Z Psych Up, what it allows you to do is allows you to heal back to full HP before you copy the stat buffs. And that's pretty big on a Pokemon such as Kyogre, who takes chip damage quite a bit. And really important for Water Spout. Having that full power Water Spout online is really huge. And the fact that you can copy your Xerneas's Geomancy boost as well as opposing Xerneas's Geomancy boost. So they can't exactly set up safely with Kyogre out on the field, because if I get a Psych Up, I'm doing a lot of damage with Water Spout. Even if they're boosted in special defense, the special attack boost that we have cancels it out, and it is doing a lot of damage. So I ended up running the Normalium Z. I only tested it a little bit before Oceania, and I ended up liking it, so I ended up just deciding it was good, especially in Fury, because of the fact that it could really screw up certain teams, especially against like Zerndon, for instance. Could help against the Xerneas Lunala teams that were again popular in Sun Series as well as rising in Moon Series as well. And I felt like it was overall really good. The spread, what it allows it to do for the one I ran at Oceania, was just a spread that allows it to outspeed Modest Venusaur. So the fact is I could outspeed Modest Venusaur even if the sun is up. Bulk on Kyogre just allowed it to live a +2 Moonblast from Timid Xerneas 100% of the time, so I could get the Z Psych Up and increase my stats while getting back to full health, as well as just taking physical hits in general, which was really nice overall. A slightly adjustment for the spread in the Brampton Regional Championship. The reason I decided to go with the spread that I did for Brampton was because of the fact that I wanted more speed. I ended up deciding to just outspeed Smeargle, which was a problem Pokemon that I had for the team at the time, because I did end up lowering that speed investment, but I ended up increasing it back after Oceania when I lost to Smeargle twice. Smeargle was part of my only losses at Oceania. And not having a Kyogre that could outspeed the Smeargle and revenge KO it or double it up with another Pokemon was actually pretty big. So I ended up just changing that spread for Oceania. And Z Psych Up, even though, like, you know, it might be for just getting a Geomancy boost onto your own Kyogre, that's actually not what I really did at the events that I went to with this team. Whenever I played Z Psych Up, it was mainly just to get back HP, because that means I could play more aggressively with Kyogre, which was really nice because of the fact that I would sometimes aggressively switch in Kyogre or aggressively go for attacks, and I didn't have to worry about taking a bit of damage just because I had that Z Psych Up option available. Even if I wasn't copying a stat, just getting that full HP is really nice, because Kyogre is a Pokemon that wants that HP for that Water Spout, so it can inflict more damage to the opponent. And I thought Z Psych Up would be really nice. It ended up pairing nice with the Rain Dance I had on Tornadus, which we will go over right now. So I ended up keeping the Focus Sash Tornadus that I ended up using in the Sun Series at Roanoke Regionals, but I ended up changing one move, and that was Protect. I ended up not using Protect too much on Tornadus in Moon Series, I felt like, when I was using this team. So I ended up just trying out Rain Dance because Groudon was getting very popular at the time, especially with that Volcarona team that was rising up, doing really well. So I ended up trying out Rain Dance, and I felt like it was really good because if Groudon ever switches in to try and negate the damage of Kyogre's water type attacks with the sun, I could get a Rain Dance, and especially a +2. The fact that Water Spout in the rain at +2 just does so much damage to those Groudon teams, and even if the sun is up, a +2 water spout would do so much damage to the Groudon, although they could usually survive it. So Rain Dance was actually really useful just for that situation, and the fact is I could get the Rain up and not really have to worry about switching out Kyogre after it already got the Psych Up boost from a potential Geomancy. So that is the reason why I decided to go Rain Dance. Standard 4 HP, 252 special attack, and 252 speed with a timid nature. I used this at both at Oceania and at Brampton. I kept the same Amoonguss at both events from the Sun Series event with Payapa Berry with Regenerator's ability, Grass Knot Clear Smog Spore Rage Powder with 236 HP, 76 defense, 196 special defense with a Sassy Nature and 2 Speed Ivies. I've already gone over, but 2 Speed Ivies to Speed Creep Other Amoonguss. It survives a Flare Blitz from a non-invested Incineroar and is able to just tank attacks from opposing Xerneas and Kyogre. Payapa Berry was just very useful because Lunala was rising up, especially since Lunala got that Z move. It became very popular, so having a Payapa Berry was really clutch, especially in a lot of matches that I ended up playing. So standard Amoonguss, but it's still going on very strong. No reason to really change the EV spread in my opinion. And yeah, Amoonguss was just able to do what I needed to do. It was able to take attacks, it was able to fire off some spores, redirect some attacks, get rid of some Xerneas boosts, live attacks from like Lunala's Psyshock and Xerneas double ups, and it was pretty solid overall. Incineroar, same Incineroar, very standard. There was again no reason to really change what wasn't broke, and it was just a solid Incineroar. Figgy Berry, Intimidate with Flare Blitz, Fake Out, U-Turn, and Roar. 236 HP, 4 attack, 4 defense, 236 special defense, and 28 speed with a Careful Nature once again. And yeah, the spread just lives Timid Moonblast from Xerneas once again after a Geomancy boost, and underspeeds Primals, so I can U-turn a Primal if they are in Trick Room. I could outspeed them and get the U-turn off before they can attack, which is really nice. And yeah, again, Incineroar, pretty standard, but did what I needed to do: get Intimidate, get Fake Out, rotate, and roar out some Xerneas, which I did do throughout the events that I played. Finally, Kartana. Kartana I changed slightly from the Sun Series events that I went to. Assault Vest is its held item, with Beast Boost as its ability, Leaf Blade, Smart Strike, Knockoff Sacred Sword. This time with 4 HP, 12 attack, 4 defense, 236 special defense, and max speed with a Jolly Nature. The reason I ended up changing to Jolly Nature is because everyone was playing the Kartana Speed Creep War, so I ended up just going max speed just to avoid it. I didn't really miss the attack that I had in the Sun Series. It really didn't make a difference anymore, and I felt like that max speed ended up really helping. I didn't really miss many EVs that I could have had in like attack or bulk, and yeah, it was very solid. It was able to do its job, take attacks. Like, you can't survive like Z move from Lunala anyway, so yeah, and it was able to outspeed pretty much every Kartana that I played. I think every Kartana I played at the events were either slow or were speed tying with me, so Kartana was able to do a ton of work, especially in the mirror. And yeah, that's the version I used throughout Moon Series. Really, the only thing that I changed between the two events were the Kyogre and the Xerneas spread, but otherwise the other 4 Pokemon stayed the same throughout all of Moon Series. I really did enjoy this version of the team. I thought Rain Dance and Z Psych Up were very fun, and it played a bit differently compared to the Sun Series version of the team. Z Psych Up ended up changing a lot of things. It meant I couldn't really just overpower teams anymore with like Mystic Water, Water Spout, and I could play a bit more, set up the Xerneas, and then I could get in Kyogre and just go for the Psych Up or a regular. I could go for a regular Psych Up, or I could go for the Z Psych Up depending on the situation. So I felt like there were different strategies, and the item choices actually made a big difference in how the teams played, especially with like how Torn played, how I conserved it. Rain Dance was a huge thing, and yeah, it was still very fun to pilot. But let us move on to the main series, the Ultra Series. So let us get into the version for the main series of VGC 2019, the most important series, Ultra Series. So Ultra Series was a format that ended up changing the VGC 19 meta immensely because of the fact that you have the blue orb, red orb available, so primals are now in the format. So basically you need to have a orb on your primal Pokemon, the Groudon, Kyogre, and as well as Mega Rayquaza being legal, which ended up changing quite a bit in the format, as well as Mega Evolutions being allowed. So this changed up immensely. I ended up testing a lot of Tornogre early on, but I didn't really enjoy using Tornogre. I tried things like Gengar, Metagross. I was just not liking how they were playing. I did still like Zernogre, and I ended up using Xerneas and Kyogre at the European International Championship, which I ended up placing in the top 64, which wasn't bad. It was a version with Gengar, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, and Landorus with the core Pokemon, and the fact is it was a Parish version of the team. It ended up utilizing Parish Song. It ended up utilizing a lot of different tools, which I liked, but there were some problems with the team. I didn't really like the team after the event. It just had too many problems. I ended up dropping it, and then I ended up experimenting around with more stuff until about 1 week before the North America International Championship. I really wasn't liking the team I was using. I had a team that I thought I was pretty set in stone, but I just wasn't liking it too much after playing in some local events. So I ended up scrapping it, and I really wanted to build a new team, and I was trying to figure out what I really liked in the format, because I wasn't really enjoying the format at the time. So I was trying to understand what was really good about the team, like why I had so much success in the first place. So I ended up just trying out the Tornogre team, bringing it on the Ultra Series. I ended up laddering on Pokemon Showdown just to find out what did I really enjoy about this team, because there were quite a few tools about this team that I felt like I really liked, and I wanted to see what I could incorporate into maybe perhaps a different team. So I ended up using the team, and I ended up winning a bunch of games. I was doing really well on Showdown, so I was like, you know, this team has a lot of things that I like. It just has offense, it has defense, it has speed control, it has pressure, it has setup, it has a lot of the things that I like when I'm looking for a team. It pretty much has the perfect balance. So I was like, am I really gonna go no Mega? And I was like, if the team is playing well, I might as well just use it, because I'm comfortable with it. And even though the series has changed immensely, especially with the meta being completely different compared to the previous Sun and Moon series, I thought I might as well give it a go. I have nothing really to lose. I still had a day 2 invite guaranteed. The only thing I was really fighting for was a title for the North American International Champion, and as well as money, I guess, as well as a travel award, which was pretty important. And I really want to do it at North America. It was a personal event for me. I just really want to do well, because I never really have done that well at a US National / North America International Championship. I really want to do well, so I ended up just deciding to go with this team because I'm really comfortable with it, and it has brought me success before, so I didn't see why it couldn't potentially bring me success at this tournament. So yeah, let us break down the team that I used at the North America International Championship, as well as the Pokemon World Championship. I ended up placing 12th at the North America International Championship, as well as 3rd place at the Pokemon World Championship. First, we have Xerneas, once again with Power Herb and Fairy Aura for its ability. We have Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Geomancy Protect, going back to Dazzling Gleam because Psyshock wasn't really necessary anymore, because Toxicroak wasn't a Pokemon that was really used in Ultra Series at all, so I could run Dazzling Gleam pretty freely. And I ended up running the spread I used at North America Internationals was 108 HP, 4 defense, 188 special attack, 4 special defense, and 204 speed with a modest nature, while at the World Championship I ended up changing it to 44 HP, 4 defense, 204 special attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed with a timid nature. At North America, I was experimenting around with the Xerneas, and I felt like I wanted to try out a modest Xerneas because I thought it would be pretty interesting to use, especially since Primal Groudon was a Pokemon that really changed how you played it against it, because of the fact that previously you could deal with Groudon by clicking Water Spout in Sun and Moon, and it would still do a decent amount, and the fact that Groudon didn't even resist Moonblast at the time was pretty big. But since it resisted, and there were people who were running a very specially defensive Groudon, I wanted a more offensive Xerneas because I want to make sure I got a 2-hit KO with a boosted Moonblast, because Primal Groudon is a very huge threat to the team, especially running double grass and Incineroar, and the fact I can just do so much damage with Precipice Blade. So I wanted a way to make sure I could 2-hit KO every Groudon I was going to encounter. So I ended up running the spread. The Eevee spread, what it allows it to do is survive the Z-move from Lunala, the Moonraze Maelstrom, as well as the fact that it speed creeps modest primals, which means it can outspeed modest Groudon as well as modest Kyogre and Geomancy before they get an eruption or a water spout. And I speed creep that. I sped crept it a lot because I believe there was another Pokemon I was really worried about, but I couldn't remember after going back through my notes. So yeah, I ended up just running that speed. I didn't have much EVs I really want to invest to anyway. I had pretty much a lot left over anyway, and I don't think the extra special attack would have really changed much. The reason I ran as much special attack 180 modest is what that allows it to do is it allows me to KO a standard Incineroar, the 236 HP, 236 special defense with the boosting nature after a U-turn from my own Incineroar. So what I could do is just U-turn out into their Incineroar, and then afterward they're in range of my +2 Moonblast from my Xerneas, which was pretty crucial when facing down a potential Roar Incineroar. And at Worlds, I ended up changing because when I faced Graham at the North America International Championship, when I faced him twice, his timid Kyogre as well as timid Lunala were really screwing up how my Xerneas could really approach that matchup, because I couldn't Geomancy immediately and I had to play 50-50 mind games between Tailwind and the straight for the Z move. So I ended up just running timid just so I can outspeed Lunala's. The reason I ran 204 special attack on my timid Xerneas was because it matched the stat you would get with a 68 special attack modest Xerneas, which was very common at the time. So I felt like if this is the benchmark most players hit because it 2-hit KOs most Primal Groudons, I felt like it was worth it enough. And then I just invested a little bit of HP just because I generally like a little bit of bulk into my Xerneas, and it made a Z Moongeist Beam a roll into the Xerneas' favor. The Kyogre changed quite a bit, no longer holding a Mystic Water or a Normalium Z, but instead holding the Blue Orb, which was a really nice buff to Kyogre because it was able to boost its special attack and special defense, which was very much appreciated. This time with Drizzle as its ability as always, but Primordial C when it Primal reverts, we have Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, Protect, rocking a new moveset, Origin Pulse. I felt like in Ultra Series I wanted more pressure, because I felt like in Ultra Series the most you want to pressure your opponent's team as much as possible, and I felt like Scald didn't really do that as much. But I felt like Origin Pulse was actually worth it because it just made it harder for your opponent to switch and position themselves compared to Scald. Like the only thing Origin Pulse really changed was like one I could miss, which was definitely a factor. It definitely was a factor, but the fact is I could get so much pressure off that I felt like Origin Pulse was definitely worth it. The only thing that it made a difference was now I was more vulnerable to Wide Guard, but I was definitely happy with the trade overall, as I think Origin Pulse did come in clutch, even though I missed quite a few crucial Origin Pulses at times. And Ice Beam, since you don't really run Thunder in the format, and Rayquaza became a big threat, like Mega Rayquaza made a big return in Ultra Series. The fact is, you want to be able to hit that Pokemon, you want to hit Salamence, you want to be able to hit Primal Groudon even outside of, you want to make sure you hit it because of the fact that if it gets Desolate Land up, you want a way to touch it. So Ice Beam definitely a move that was really handy throughout still, and it also helped with like a Moongus, which was nice. And the spread I was able to run was 204 HP, 4 defense, 44 special attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed with a modest nature. What this allows you to do, again, it allows you to outspeed Smeargle, and it allows you to outspeed max speed Necrozma forms in Duskmane and Dawnwings, which was actually really nice for the team because of the fact that sometimes they would stay in their Duskmane form to resist the Xerneas attacks, but the fact is I could outspeed them and get a Water Spout off before they could attack my Kyogre is actually really huge. So having that spread ended up being really clutch against Size Spam, and the fact is like I was still bulky enough, and with the extra special attack I didn't feel like I needed to invest a lot of special attack into Kyogre, especially with 180 base special attack in the rain is pretty insane. And Origin Pulse was a big step up from Scald because of the fact that it does more damage than a single target Scald with a spread Origin Pulse, and it hits 2 Pokemon on the field. So I don't think I really need the extra special attack, as it really didn't change many numbers, and I didn't really need the extra bulk because it wouldn't have changed too many numbers either. So I was very happy with the spread. I brought it both to Internets and Worlds, and it ended up being very clutch. Ironically, in Moon Series, I did not even consider Flying MZ Tornadus. I didn't really think about using Flying MZ Tornadus, even though I know it was pretty handy. You could allow it to KO Kartana's through the Assault Vest, which was nice. I just didn't really like how it played. But for Ultra Series, since I wasn't going to put a Z move on anything else unless it was Kartana, and Kartana still needed the Assault Vest, I decided to go with the Fly MZ because it was still going to be useful. I think Bulky Tornadus was definitely better in Ultra Series than it was in Moon Series, especially since I could probably take attacks more because I don't have to worry about like a Scarf Kyogre outspeeding my Tornadus and getting a Water Spout off. I could actually weaken the Kyogre and get a Hurricane or a Z move off before I can and survive the attack. So I think overall the Fly MZ Tornadus came in handy. With the moveset of Hurricane, Roleplay, Taunt, and Tailwind. At the North America International Championship, I ran 244 HP, 36 defense, 12 special attack, 4 special defense, and 212 speed with a timid nature. While at the World Championship, I ended up changing it slightly to 244 HP, a 4 defense, a 44 special attack, 4 special defense, and 212 speed, again with a timid nature. The reason I decided to go with this Tornadus and investing a little bit more defense than what you would commonly see is because I wanted a better roll with a Mega Salamance's Double Edge if it's max attack, because it gave me a better chance to live a Double Edge from that Pokemon, because losing it to a max attack Double Edge is actually pretty bad, especially if you're facing down the Zerndon. So ended up having a little bit more bulk. The speed, what allows it to do is outspeed my Kartana, which is actually pretty crucial because I need to get like Z Hurricane or a regular Hurricane into a Pokemon before my Kartana moves, so I could break maybe like Shadow Shield or Focus Sash, and then maybe even a double up will allow me to pick up a knockout, which allows Kartana, since it moves second and gets the KO, would allow it to be able to get a Beast Boost, which is really handy. So overall, this Tornadus, what it allowed me to do, the roleplay was a new tech that the Tornadus had, and you run it because you can't run Rain Dance in this format. It basically functioned as a Rain Dance, and it was very, very solid. I didn't really click it that much overall throughout both tournaments, but the fact is that roleplay, there are so many strategic plays you can make with this. You could roleplay a Lunala, for instance, for its Shadow Shield, which is actually really good. The fact you could roleplay the Shadow Shield and survive the Z move because you acquired Shadow Shield. The fact you could copy Shadow Tag from Mega Gengar, which is really nice as well. So you could trap in like a Groudon that switches in with the Mega Gengar on the field. Then you trapped in basically those. You trapped in the Groudon, and then you can roleplay the Kyogre the following turn. And again, obviously positioning against Primal Groudon, which is pretty big since it's harder to position well against the Primal Groudon in this format because you can't really hit it with a Water type move. You get no damage if they switch in with the Desolate Land. So having that roleplay option was great for scaring them out, and for positioning, I didn't always have to switch out Kyogre, which was very nice indeed. And yeah, this Tornadus was just super solid overall. At Worlds, I just ended up changing the spread a little bit because I felt like it wasn't really coming into play that much, and there are sometimes I would miss the special attack because of the fact that I would like to get double ups into Xerneas with like the Z Hurricane, the Supersonic Sky Strike, and then Hurricane might be able to pick up a knockout onto bulkier Xerneases after the damage if they didn't go for Geomancy, which is something that I missed. So that's the reason I decided to end up going for more special attack, especially since Tornadus was actually surviving with more HP anyway, that the EVs weren't really coming into play, that I felt like that was worth saving them. So ended up moving those investments into special attack, and I think it did actually come in handy at the World Championship, so that's very nice to see. Amoonguss changed quite a bit between the series, but the spread is still going to be the same, although a little bit changes. We have the Amoonguss with Focus Sash and Regenerate as the ability with Energy Ball, Clear Smog, Spore, and Rage Powder, and 236 HP, 76 Physical defense, 196 special defense with a calm nature this time, and 22 speed IVs. And at Worlds, pretty much the same thing, although it had Grass Knot over Energy Ball. Now, the reason I decided to go with this Amoonguss is because of the fact that Focus Sash was pretty much the key item. It allowed me to handle Ultra Necrozma and Tapu Lele and a bunch of other Pokemon that were just threatening the Amoonguss. Fire Punch from like Primal Groudon, the fact I'm able to survive. Z Hurricanes from other Tornadus was actually really clutch as well. The fact that Focus Sash allows Amoonguss to survive multiple hits while redirecting, or able to live one big hit and then get like a Spore off, is pretty huge. And yeah, I definitely do think it was like the best Amoonguss of Ultra Series, the best item at least. But the fact is, I decided to run Energy Ball at North America. The reason I decided to run Energy Ball is I felt like I didn't need Grass Knot in a lot of situations, or Groudon or Kyogre. Weakening Kyogre is nice, but it like Grass Knot wasn't doing too much damage where I really needed it. And Energy Ball allowed me to hit Tapu Fini, which was a Pokemon that wasn't really seen in Sun or Moon series, which ended up changing a lot because Grass Knot does no damage to Tapu Fini since it's light. And since Tapu Fini is a big threat because of the fact it can go for like Haze and get rid of my Xerneas' boost, as well as take attacks from my Kyogre, I felt like Energy Ball was definitely worth the trade. And it did actually come in handy at the North America International Championship. And yeah, so I ended up changing back to Worlds because I felt like I would Grass Knot more Groudons and Kyogres and stack Attackas. I felt like Grass Knot would definitely be more clutch at Worlds. And the spread ended up changing. You notice it's a calm nature instead of a sassy nature. The main reason I decided to make that change is because I wanted to speed creep Incineroar after a Tailwind boost. Because if I can Tailwind up with my Tornadus and Amoonguss is under Tailwind, I could Spore a Incineroar potentially before it can move, which is really nice in certain situations. I don't think it really ever came into play, but it's definitely a possibility that I could do. And it did come in handy in practice, so no regrets using this Amoonguss. At Worlds, actually, it was funny. I think I never really clicked Grass Knot at all, except in unnecessary situations. So I think Energy Ball would have actually helped me more, because it would have actually helped me in my semi-final match at Worlds. But you know, nothing I can really do. The Amoonguss was still solid overall and did its job, what I needed to do. Also, taking less damage from foul play is really nice. And the Incineroar, it's the same Incineroar basically from the Sun and Moon series with one slight change. Still holding that Figgy Berry with Intimidate as its ability, Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Roar, and U-Turn as its moveset. 236 HP, 36 defense, and 236 special defense, with this time with a sassy nature and 0 speed IVs. In Ultra Series, I felt like getting the speed momentum with a slower U-turn from Incineroar against opposing Incineroar is really important for the Weather War. So I felt like, yeah, even though I have Tailwind, and this might not make sense anymore, especially since the 84 speed one allowed you to outspeed things in Tailwind, such as maybe like opposing Xerneas, which was nice sometimes, but like I felt like it never really came into play. It really didn't change much in my opinion. I felt like having the min speed Incineroar wouldn't really hurt me, and it ended up helping me more than hurting me. Like getting the slow U-turn was really clutch in a lot of games, and I definitely liked it for positioning. So having this Incineroar was really nice, and just the speed difference, getting that slow U-turn. I ended up getting a lot of slow U-turns, and being able to position Kyogre really well in games is really nice. And the fact I didn't have to risk taking a little bit of damage with Kyogre on an opposing Incineroar going for U-turn was great as well. This Incineroar, even though maybe I could carry a Dark move to help against Ultra Necrozma and Lunala, I think Roar was still useful. It made the Zerndon matchup again still easier to handle, and definitely was a MVP. I definitely clicked Roar at Worlds a lot, and I definitely wouldn't have clicked a Dark type move as much, so Roar was definitely handy in that tournament. And as well as in IC, I ended up clicking Roar a lot too. I wouldn't have really clicked a Dark move with Incineroar. I never found myself using a Dark move with Incineroar, clicking it that much in any of the series actually. Finally, we have Kartana, and Kartana basically stayed the same between the two events with a slight spread change. We have the Assault Vest Kartana with Beast Boost for its ability, Leaf Blade, Smart Strike, Knockoff, and Sacred Sword. This time with the EV spread of 20 HP, 28 attack for defense, 236 special defense, and 220 speed with a jolly nature. The reason I decided to change the speed is because of the fact that Again, Nihilego actually rose up in Ultra Series, so that was a big game changer. And there were Pokemon that decided to speed creep Kartana, like Mega Rayquaza from Pado's side, for instance, as well as a lot of Torns were designed to be bulky and just outspeed Nihilego. So I felt like having Cortana at 1 speed could come in clutch, and it did. I definitely outsped a lot of Rayquazas and some Metagrosses and Tornadoses actually in practice. So this Cortana ended up doing really well. Still has the same bulk to live the Serena Feint plus a Moonblast from Timid Geomancy boosted Xerneas. I changed the HP for 20 HP is because it changes the calc with Incineroar Flare Blitz at -2. -2 Flare Blitz does over 50, like it has a 50% chance, over a 50% chance to KO Cortana, but with the 20 HP instead of like 4 HP, it changes it to a 31.3% chance to KO, which is a very significant actually. So having extra HP didn't hurt, especially since the Cortana's attack, I didn't actually need that much attack, I felt like. So having that spread really came in handy. I really love this Cortana spread. It ended up doing work. All the EVs actually ended up coming into play. There were certain 2-hit knockouts I barely was able to get, as well as the speed coming in really handy at times, allowing me to indicate certain EV spreads as well, like against opposing Rayquaza, for instance, and Tornadoes as well. And yeah, it was very handy indeed. And yeah, that is going to be the version of Ultra Series for the Tornogre team. I ended up getting 12th at the North America International Championship, as well as 3rd place at the World Championship. I really do love this team, and I think I'm going to take some time to explain how the team works so you can get a better understanding of this team. The main goal of this team is to get your restricted Pokemon Xerneas and Kyogre into great positions in order to take the game. There are many ways to accomplish getting your restricted Pokemon in good positions. Tailwind with Tornadus is great. A well-timed Tailwind can help allow Kyogre to sweep with a powerful Water Spout under Rain, or can allow Xerneas to create offensive presence even without a Geomancy, or allow it to set up Geomancy easier in front of fast threats such as Tapu Koko. Incineroar's Fake Out is really good with its Intimidate ability and the fact to U-turn out to gain momentum every time in order to allow you to reposition your board, as well as Roar is really good to deny setups such as opposing Xerneas Geomancy and Trick Room, which is really good on Incineroar, as you can bring out Incineroar multiple times in a game for that Intimidate as well as to reset the board position. Amoonguss is great as well because of the fact that with its Focus Sash, it'll be able to take at least 1 hit, and it will be able to redirect potentially 2, or be able to put your opponent to sleep with Spore, which is nice, and it'll be able to reset stats on Xerneas with Clear Smog, which is really nice in general, and be able to protect your Pokemon for at least another turn, allowing Xerneas to Geomancy or allow Kyogre to Water Spout freely. Kartana can be used as offensive presence because of the fact that it can do a lot of damage and has a good matchup against a lot of common Pokemon like Stakataka, for instance, Xerneas, opposing Kyogre, and more. It can do a lot of damage, and a well-played Kartana can be deadly, as a lot of Pokemon might not want to switch into a knockoff, for instance, such as Xerneas does not want to lose his power, Incineroar doesn't want to lose its berry, and more. There are many ways that you can play this team and reposition. The thing is, you want to prevent your opponent from really being able to get a good setup, and you can really just adjust the board really well using Incineroar, Amoonguss, and Tornadus. Those 3 are very important support Pokemon that can basically reposition what could be a bad situation into one that works in your favor. So there are a bunch of lead combinations that you can run with this team. This team is very flexible, which is one of the main reasons why I like Tornogre, is just because of the fact that its lead matchups are so diverse, and I feel like each player can lead differently according to their play style. So I think generally there are so many different combinations just because it's flexible, and you can lead pretty much anyone with anyone and change up a game plan immediately on the fly. So there's a lot of combinations you can run. Tornadus next to Pokemon can get Tailwind up, which is really nice. Like next to Incineroar, Fake Out, with Kyogre for offensive presence, with Xerneas to help set up Geomancy if there's a faster threat that can do a lot of damage to Xerneas immediately. There's just so many combinations you can do with Tornadus. You can even deny setup using the Taunt, which is really nice. Incineroar is obviously a great lead. It pairs well with a lot of the members, such as Amoonguss, because you can go for like Fake Out in Spore, or you could U-turn in Spore. You can go for a Tornado setup once again with Fake Out, and then U-turn out under Tailwind to bring in your Kyogre pretty safely. The Xerneas Incineroar, no need to really explain that. It's a very strong lead. Fake Out Geomancy is really strong, and be able to pivot out with U-turn into Amoonguss, or trying to get something with more offensive presence, such as the Kyogre, to do a lot of damage. There's the Kyogre plus Incineroar is pretty good because of the fact that if the opponent doesn't have Protect, Fake Out plus Water Spout can do an immense amount of damage already on the field, or you can pivot out into Amoonguss. So your Kyogre can be next to Amoonguss and it can go for Rage Powder, and after dropping that Intimidate, the physical type attackers aren't really doing much to Kyogre in the first place. Amoonguss is generally a good lead with everyone too. You can go for a Rage Powder or Spore, so you can disrupt your opponent's team or just set up with your Xerneas, or spread a lot of damage with Kyogre, which is really nice. It can do a lot of work, and I think Amoonguss is generally a great lead as well because it can really disrupt opponents, and with Focus Sash especially, it can just survive multiple hits and force the opponent to double up the Amoonguss slot, which can just be fatal because the fact is that they're doubling up Amoonguss, Kyogre can get a free Water Spout safely, or Xerneas can get a Geomancy without taking too much damage. And I think the rest of the leads can be situational because of the fact that you can go for offense immediately, or you can just go for a get immediate damage off, so you can set up for a late game sweep or end game situation like Geomancy for instance. So there's a lot of different pairs you can pair up. It just really depends on matchup and what you think your opponent has. The most common leads that I would say that I led with this team would be Tornogre plus Incineroar, which was really good. Again, Fake Out Tailwind is a great option. The fact you could U-turn out into your Kyogre, which is really nice. The fact that you can do that is just great because it prevents Kyogre from taking too much damage or any damage at all. Getting a free Tailwind up, and then you have those 3 turns to abuse the Tailwind to use your powerful water type attacks. It's also a great lead that can shut down Xerneas because they can't really Geomancy for free, with the combination of Taunt and Roar being able to deny most situations that the opponent can deny most positions where the Xerneas can set up Geomancy. Kyogre plus Amoonguss is another lead that I generally was able to lead just because of the fact that you could go for Rage Powder and Water Spout. The fact you can just do that safely and get Kyogre to do a lot of damage. The fact you could switch out Amoonguss into Incineroar and protect Kyogre for Fake Out pressure if you think you need it in case of powerful spread type attacks, or the Amoonguss is generally threatened. And the fact you could just go for Spore, which is really nice because Kyogre is protecting the Amoonguss from fire type attacks. Just allowing it to go for Spore is really nice as well. Incineroar plus Xerneas was pretty much a standard lead throughout all the VGC 19 formats, but there's a reason why, and yes, I did lead it a lot with this team. The fact is you can just go for Fake Out. You could deny opposing mirrors such as Xerneas and Incineroar by being able to roar out their Xerneas as well. And you could U-turn out, pivot into Amoonguss, pivot out into Kyogre for offensive presence. You could just do a lot of combinations. You didn't even have to go for immediate Geomancy at most situations actually, because sometimes it would be better just to go for damage with Xerneas, spread it while having Incineroar pivot out, and just finding a good position for a late game Geomancy as well was really useful. Tornogre plus Kyogre was also a very common lead that I led quite a bit just because of the fact that it's pretty big offensive pressure if against slower teams, because Kyogre just able to threaten a lot of damage to the Water Spout. The Tornogre is just going to be able to set up Tailwind, and then Kyogre is going to be faster and going to be able to go for those powerful water type attacks. If you're against a faster threat, you could also go for Tailwind and Protect, so the following turn you could just go for the big Water Spout and a lot of damage, and if they knock out your Tornogre, you just got a free switch into something more powerful or something more supportive, such as a Kartana that could do a lot of damage. The Xerneas that could set up a Geomancy while Kyogre goes for Water Spout, or potentially an Amoonguss that can just go for Rage Powder so Kyogre doesn't have to worry about any attacks. The 5th most common lead I'll talk about is going to be Xerneas plus Amoonguss, and the reason you lead a Xerneas plus Amoonguss is you can go for Rage Powder, Geomancy obviously. However, sometimes I didn't go for that. Sometimes I just went for a Protect and Spore, which is a big mind game that your opponent has to play immediately, because if you're able to get the Spore off, it's just going to be hard for your opponent to really do anything to the Xerneas, which is really nice, and then you could redirect safely and get up Geomancy. And yeah, this lead was very effective in certain matchups that couldn't really touch Amoonguss, so Amoonguss was going to be able to bait attacks while the Xerneas was able to spread damage or just set up efficiently. Okay, so I'm gonna go over some matchups, how I felt throughout the series. This is gonna be for all 3 series, how I felt about the restricted duo pairs. Of course, this is subjective because each of these pairs can be paired up with different Pokemon, and the matchup can change depending on what is paired with these restricted Pokemon. However, this is how I generally felt about the matchup. So against Groudon plus Xerneas, I always felt it was either in the Tornogre's favor or it was potentially even. The ability to just roar out the Xerneas to prevent it from Geomancing with Taunt and Roar is really nice. And the ability to Tailwind in front of Groudon and get Kyogre into a great position, forcing it to switch out, which meant most Groudon plus Xerneas teams also didn't exactly have the best water resist other than Tapu Fini. The fact that you can get this very powerful hit off and just start dwindling down your opponent's numbers made it allow Kyogre to do really well, especially next to Tornadus. Now, why it's even is because a well-played Xerneas can get a Geomancy off if Groudon's able to get in a position with its Desolate Land, or if it's able to get the Sun up to prevent Xerneas from taking as much damage, and you can't stop the Geomancy in time. But otherwise, it is generally a positive matchup where the Tornogre player will be able to have the advantage. Xerneas plus Kyogre is generally a positive or even matchup. If it's the mirror, it's usually going to come down to speed as well as sometimes speed ties, and also like what Pokemon are accompanied. Xerneas plus Kyogre, the mirror match was very common, and whoever had the fastest Kartana generally was able to do a lot of work, especially depending on the Kyogre sets, which was very key in the matchup. But overall, in Ultra Series, the difference was most players didn't run a Kartana. I was the only one with a Kartana, and with Kartana, it makes the matchup much more positive because of the fact that Kartana is such a big threat to the team, where Incineroar and Tornadus are the only Pokemon that can really touch Kartana. Otherwise, like Kyogre is outsped and Leaf Blade does a lot, or you can knock off the Xerneas Power Herb before it can Geomancy, which is huge. You just do a lot of damage, and Kartana's not generally threatened. So Kartana generally makes the matchup a lot easier and can just do a lot of damage and shut down a lot of the combinations that Xerneas and Kyogre can pair. Yveltal teams, between Yveltal Kyogre and Yveltal Groudon, generally these teams are also weak to Kyogre compositions, so Kyogre is generally able to put a lot of work, and of course the Xerneas is really strong against the Yveltal, so you're usually able to brute force most of these teams with a well-positioned Kyogre, and then you're able to bring out the Xerneas and potentially Geomancy on a turn where you're clicking Water Spout and they're either forced to switch out or they're forced to take the Water Spout and they can't really retaliate against the Xerneas. It can be even potentially depending on the support Pokemon. If they have troublesome Pokemon like Ferrothorn as well as a Moongus or Tapu Koko, which can make the matchup a little bit more annoying, that denies Xerneas the setup and can handle the Kyogre effectively. Rayquaza plus Groudon is a matchup that's generally positive because of the fact that Kyogre is able to do really well, and most of the Groudon on these teams run a special Groudon, so you're able to usually Geomancy and get a huge hit off and not really worry about the Groudon doing too much damage. The problem is the core Pokemon usually run something like a Ferrothorn, which can make the team a little bit more annoying to handle, but if well played, the Incineroar should be able to do a lot of work as well against this combination. So it can be even. If they play well with the Ferrothorn, it's definitely possible to win the game if you're the Rayquaza plus Groudon, but generally it's more in favor of the Tornogre team. Zygarde teams, usually we only saw a few Zygarde teams, mostly were paired with Solgaleo back in the Sun and Moon series. I felt this team matchup was usually positive because you had a Xerneas, which was really strong against the Zygarde, and the Kyogre was really strong as well, even though Ice Beam wasn't ran in Sun or Moon series unless you ran Ice Beam, Scarf, Kyogre. It really didn't change much because Water Spout was just doing way too much, and as well as a Moonblast. Solgaleo couldn't exactly switch in effectively, but it can go even depending on the support Pokemon. If it's like a Sunny Day Ludicolo or a Toxicroak, it could be annoying to play around those Pokemon. And if the Zygarde gets too many boosts, especially with the Misty Seed and next to Heal Pulse Tapu Fini with Swagger, Zygarde could end up reverse sweeping if you're not careful. Lunala plus Kyogre is a matchup that generally should be positive just because Kartana is really good in this matchup. The fact it can outspeed both Pokemon and threaten a lot of damage into the Kyogre as well as Lunala. If an endgame Kartana can do really well against those Pokemon. In general, the problem is it really just depends on your Xerneas. Again, Modest Xerneas, if it's slower than the Lunala, can give you a lot of trouble. If it's a Trick Room Lunala, it can also give you a lot of trouble because it might be harder to switch into certain factors. And depending on the core Pokemon that are supported by Lunala Kyogre, such as Tapu Koko to prevent spores from Amoonguss, if it's like a Trick Room variant, can be a little bit troublesome. So it's definitely a matchup that I think is positive because of Cortana, especially, and a well-played Xerneas, but can definitely be negative depending on the support Pokemon. The negative or even matches where I think usually it's in the opposing restricted duo's favor, or it can be even depending on circumstances and how well you're playing. These matchups are usually a bit harder, but they're not really too bad of matchups if you play well. So the restricted duos that I mainly listed were Groudon plus Lunala or Necrozma or Mewtwo, and the main reason that I say that these are usually negative matchups is because of the partner Pokemon, as well as hard to hit these other restricted Pokemon next to Groudon. So your main damage output is usually Kyogre. Without Kyogre, you're usually relying on your boosted Xerneas or Cortana. Otherwise, the rest of the Pokemon are usually more support oriented. And the thing is, Xerneas doesn't really do much to Groudon and doesn't generally do too much damage to the other restricted Pokemon unless it's set up, or it won't usually pick up a knockout like against Necrozma. A Necrozma Dustmane can take the Moonblast pretty comfortably. A Lunala with a Shadow Shield can take it pretty comfortably. Set up Trick Room, for instance, which can be a bit annoying. Or something like Mewtwo with Gravity and Hypnosis are definitely possibilities when they run it. The main reason is it's hard to switch into these psychic moves too, especially with Tapu Lele. It can be hard to set up Geomancy because of the fact that they usually run a Tapu Lele. So Magic Room is definitely a big factor to consider because of the fact that your Xerneas is going to lose Power Orb, as well as the Incineroar going to lose its Figgy Berry, and Amoonguss is going to lose Focus Sash. So Amoonguss can go down to any one hit, as well as the fact that Incineroar can't really come in too many times because of the fact that it will lose its berry, which is a pretty big deal. Overall, it's still manageable if you play well, but it is pretty tough, especially if they have something like a Stakataka, because Stakataka, if there's a wide guard next to Stakataka, it's extremely hard for Ogre to hit it. The only way to hit Stakataka after wide guard is usually through the Cortana, because Amoonguss' Grass Knot is usually a 3 to 4 hit KO, so it's not really a reliable answer. And if you have Scald, it makes the matchup a bit easier, I guess. But it's still pretty hard to maneuver against a Groudon overall, especially when these Pokemon can just fire off Psychic type attacks, or in Lunala's case, just a Moongeist Beam or a Z-move even, and it would just do a ton of damage, and it's harder to set up Xerneas against these teams. Then the matchups I feel like were truly even, where it doesn't really lean towards positive or negative, was Rayquaza Kyogre combination. The Rayquaza Kyogre combination, I think it really comes down to the partner Pokemon, because there are so many different types of partners that Rayquaza and Kyogre can run. Celesteela, they can run Cortana, Nihilego, Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini. They can just have such a large array of options that it's kind of hard to pin down an entire matchup chart against a Ray Ogre combination. Generally, on paper, Rayquaza Kyogre just loses to Xerneas usually, and your own Kyogre should be able to do well against it. But the problem is the Pokemon usually supporting these cores make Xerneas' life a lot harder to set up, as well as Kyogre. And the fact that Rayquaza is just really a big threat. Rayquaza is one of the biggest threats to this team ever since its entrance, because of the fact that it just outspeeds, it gets a lot of KO potential, like it can knock out Cortana and outspeed it potentially with a Banded Dragon Ascent, or if it has like a fire type move, it can knock out the Cortana because of its airlock and ignore Kyogre's ability, which can be really bad. Or the fact that it can knock out a Moonguss with Dragon Ascent combined with like a Water Spout. So it's really hard to switch into those two Pokemon, even with Incineroar's Intimidate. And usually the pairing Pokemon also make life difficult, because commonly they're Pokemon that give the team struggles already, such as Tapu Koko and Ferrothorn. The second matchup that I thought was truly even was more towards the Moon series, which was Ho-Oh and Kyogre. I never really thought about how this matchup really went, because of the fact that there was like a lot of Pokemon you would pair with Kyogre and Ho-Oh, which was considered to be the counter team to Xerneas plus Kyogre, even though like you might say, oh, Ho-Oh and Ogre don't really have a way to touch opposing Ogre. There was a lot of grass types on the team. Usually they had a Ferrothorn, which was already really difficult to handle, and they usually had a Ludicolo too alongside it. So it made things very difficult for the Kyogre to set up without taking too much damage. The Ho sometimes ran Posho Berry, so it could live a Water Spout and get a Tailwind up, which made it even harder for the team to handle. So there are definitely a lot of possibilities to how this matchup can go. I feel like having a Protect Ogre definitely did help the matchup, but if you were Scarf Kyogre, this definitely was a harder time because you're usually locked into move and you can't really reposition well, especially Scarf Ogre is actually very scary for the team in Moon Series because it could just threaten with Water Spout. Luckily, it's not that big of a deal in Ultra Series. It's just a duo isn't as common, but still a possibility to be noted, especially since it did actually get second at Korea Nationals. And then the next matchup I think is truly even is Xerneas plus Lunala. So this matchup is a matchup I've encountered in all 3 series, and I felt like the matchup was usually always even because of the fact that Lunala is really difficult for the team to handle. Xerneas is a possibility of being a big threat. Although Kartana can do really well against them, it just really comes down to support Pokemon because usually they have an Incineroar, which is able to intimidate the Kartana, fake it out, and allow like Lunala to set up Tailwind for instance, or Xerneas to set up a Geomancy, which can allow Kartana to be really threatened immediately. Also, the factor is the support Pokemon, usually they would like to have another Fake Out user or Follow Me user, such as like Smeargle or Kangaskhan, which can make it a little bit difficult. I think it really just comes down to support Pokemon. If the support Pokemon can't really deal with Kartana as well, usually you're able to do really well in this matchup. But if they have Pokemon that can deal with Kartana effectively and just prevent it from doing work against the Xerneas plus Lunala, it can definitely be a hard matchup. So I think this team composition, really, it just depends on what Pokemon are supporting the restricted in Xerneas and Lunala, because of the fact that I think overall the matchup can be positive or it can be negative, just really depending on the support Pokemon that the team has. So Rayquaza Lunala was another matchup I considered even. The reason is, as I mentioned before, Rayquaza is a huge threat, I feel like, to the team in general, being able to pressure a lot, and Lunala was also a pretty powerful Pokemon that just did so much damage and I couldn't exactly knock out in one hit. So both of these Pokemon did give my team some trouble, but Kyogre was able to generally be effective against this matchup because of the fact Ice Beam does pretty well against Rayquaza. Its water type moves are able to do a lot of damage, especially to their partners. And the fact is, my Incineroar was able to come in with Intimidate the Rayquaza, as well as take hits from Lunala pretty well. And Xerneas, if it's boosted and set up properly, it can win in the end game. So I felt like overall that this matchup could be even, but if the Xern Ogre team is being outpowered, it can definitely be towards my opponent's favor. But if I can get a good setup with Xerneas, or just do a bunch of damage to my opponent's team before they can really damage my side of the field, that it can be in my favor. Solgaleo plus Kyogre is another matchup where I felt it was generally even. The reason is because of the common partner Pokemon that Solgaleo plus Kyogre generally run, which is Pokemon like Tapu Koko and Kartana. And the fact is that Solgaleo, if it can carry an electric type move, it can really threaten my Kyogre, which means I can't exactly have Kyogre out safely against these Pokemon unless it's next to Amoonguss. And generally I felt that the matchup was alright just because my own Kyogre was able to do a lot, and a Geomancy boosted Xerneas next to Amoonguss can do a lot of work against the Solgaleo Kyogre team. So it generally just depended on how good your positioning was in the matchup, because I felt like it could go either way, because Solgaleo can threaten both the restricteds potentially, and Kyogre is a little bit hard to switch into. But the fact is, a well played Kyogre on the Xern Ogre's team can do really well, as well as a boosted Xerneas in a proper position can definitely give them some trouble. The next matchup I consider even is Solgaleo plus Rayquaza, and the main reason I think Solgaleo plus Rayquaza is even is kind of similar to the fact that Rayquaza and Lunala is even, except that Solgaleo threatens the Xerneas a bit harder, but it doesn't take the damage from Kyogre as well, so there is a positive. But the fact is, it's not exactly an easy Pokemon to switch into, because Steel plus Fighting coverage is a little bit difficult to switch into if I call it incorrectly. The fact that Rayquaza limits Kyogre's damage output, which is my main way to hit Solgaleo, is a little bit troublesome as well. And most of the teams, the Rayquaza is either Salt Vest, which means it's a bit harder to KO, or the fact that it's a Swords Dance berry set, which makes it a little bit difficult because I can't exactly knock it out because they generally are able to live a regular Moonblast or Ice Beam pretty comfortably, and then they can pretty much get a Dragon Send off, which is one of the reasons why Rayquaza is so difficult for the team in the first place. So, and the Solgaleo can also carry a electric type move to threaten the Kyogre or potentially Wide Guard, although most of them do run just a standard Trick Room set. If they do have something like a electric type move or Wide Guard, it can be immensely hard for the Kyogre team to do well, but I think generally a well positioned Kyogre or Xerneas next to Amoonguss once again can just be very effective in this matchup. Xerneas plus Necrozma Duskmane or Solgaleo, either one, is a matchup I think that would be considered even just because Xerneas can be a huge threat to the team, but Necrozma and Solgaleo, depending on their sets, can threaten the Kyogre and the partners around it with heavy offense, with Necrozma being able to unleash some Psychic type moves, as well as threaten my Xerneas potentially with its Sunsteel Strike, as well as Solgaleo being able to threaten with Sunsteel Strike, and even potentially an Electric type move which can threaten my Kyogre, which is the main way I usually handle the Steel types such as Necrozma and Solgaleo. So it can definitely go in either way's favor, especially depending on the partner Pokemon that's the Xerneas plus Necrozma Duskmane runs, but I think Kyogre can do really well in this matchup, as well as Amoonguss being able to redirect, and Kartana potentially can also do a ton of work against this team as well. And I think that wraps up my analysis of Tornogre throughout VGC 2019, the Sun Series, the Moon Series, and Ultra Series. I hope everyone enjoyed something, and I hope you found this very educational. I wasn't actually planning to play this team in the first place, and I never expected to play it this long throughout rotating series, but here I am. It ended up putting in a ton of work for me. I got amazing results with this team, and if you want to try out the team, there is going to be a QR code in the description down below, as well as a paste bin for all the series that this team has gone through, in case you want to play like some Sun Series friendlies or Moon Series friendlies with your friends on Showdown. So if you do want to go try that out, all will be linked in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like down below. It really does mean a lot. Let me know what you thought about the team. There are also matches online, so I do have matches in all these series if you do want to go check it out, like which shows how each version of the team played a bit differently from each other, but overall the team was able to function so cohesively as one that it was able to be successful in multiple series, and it's definitely one of the most fun teams I've ever played in VGC history. But yeah, you can also check out my war story as well as my Ultra Series season report, which will be coming out. They're going to be written articles, so I'll link those down below in the description once they come out, but be sure to keep an eye out for them. But otherwise, if you enjoyed this kind of content, be sure to leave a like down below and let me know in the comments down below as well if you have enjoyed this team report and season report of Tornogre, the history of VGC 2019. But thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day, people, and until we battle again, I'll catch you all later.